start the podcast.
Right, thanks for the introduction. Did you both shut up for a few seconds?
I gotta stop laughing at my own joke, which is really lame, isn't it?
The starter was laughing.
Right.
Okay, hello listeners and welcome to episode 11. Is it 11? Is that right?
I honestly don't know.
I think it's episode 11 of Picky Bastards. We're around there anyway. I'm Fran Slater and I'm here with Nick Parker and Matt Paul. How are you guys? You alright?
Hello.
How's it going? I'm alright, yes, thank you.
Okay, so that's the end of us being nice to each other. For the rest of the episode, I am going to be pretty evil to both of them. So I think it's episode 11, so most of you know the process by now. We pick 4 recently released albums, 1 classic album, and then one of us introduces an artist we love. So this month, the new albums are Mount Eerie's Now Only, Grae and Quelle Chris, I think that's how I pronounce it, Everything's Fine, Wye Oak's The Louder I Call, The Faster It Runs, and Screaming Females All at Once. The classic is Ready to Die by Biggie Smalls, and I'll be introducing Telling You Why I Love Nadine Shah, particularly with the album Holiday Destination. So to start us off, I'm going to go to Nick, and I'm going to ask him which album took him most out of his comfort zone, and was that a good or bad thing?
What's interesting is, in my typical state of total unpreparedness, I actually had an answer for that, and then in the last 5 seconds, I think I've changed my mind.
Right,
Brilliant.
brilliant.
See you can't stuff this roller coaster ride, you know?
You take me out of my comfort zone.
If possible, yeah. So I think I will go with Notorious B.I.G. as my album that took me out of the...
Right.
Okay, you guessed right. It's always with the guessing.
Yeah.
So this album definitely took me out of my comfort zone on a number of levels. And I think actually, I don't think it's maybe a huge surprise. Obviously, it's a cultural experience that's very different from mine. And it's a kind of a radical change from what I have ever known. So that's no surprise. But what's actually maybe slightly more interesting is the reaction that I had to being immersed in that when you ask about whether it's good or bad. And to be honest, this album made me feel really sad, I've got to say. That's my overall sort of sense of it. Is it just, I thought it was a really great album. I mean, back up and say, I thought it was a really great album in many ways. In simple terms, it was really great. It was really timeless in a way, actually, I thought, except for a few references to like beepers and things like that, and you know, just things that were kind of old technology. It was generally so simply put together and so clean and well executed that it didn't sound really dated, which I was quite surprised about, actually. So that was great. I thought the wordplay in it was really good, and really a lot of really lateral moves that I wasn't expecting when he did rhymes and stuff in his flow. So that was all great. But ultimately, it just seemed like a really tragic kind of cultural space that he was talking about and coming from, and ultimately fell foul of, you know, as we all know. So it wasn't like it was a very hard life he was talking about, but it was also a very kind of painful thing, I thought, to listen to, honestly, to see. Especially, obviously, there were songs about his suicidal feeling at times, like that, you know. Thoughts. So yeah, exactly. So that kind of made that very clear. But you know, all the way through, consistently, I think it was a very dark album, and understandably, justifiably. But I don't want to say that I just feel like the loss of him was just, you know, was somehow more significant than the loss of the thousands of other people who've died in cultural spaces that are this violent in the past. You know, they're all tragedies. But you know, clearly he was somebody who had a lot to say and seemed to know that he wasn't going to get a chance to say it.
I mean, the album's called Ready to Die, isn't it? So, I mean, that goes along with everything you've just said in a lot of ways, doesn't it?
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I mean, is that you?
Yeah, I mean, basically, that's the main thing I would say about it. It was just really and so simple, so sort of stripped down. You know, it was So I thought it was produced really well and had a lot to offer. And I listened to it a great deal, actually. I mean, even though I've made me feel kind of low, I listened to it an awful lot. But other than that, I don't know what else I'd go with.
I think I'll jump in, Matt, if that's all right.
Go for it.
Because I mean, while I completely agree with a lot of what you said there, it is a really sad album. I'm going to just pick out the song "Juicy" as an example of kind of the opposite of that, because Juicy's Juice is huge in the hip hop world. It's kind of his big tune. It's it features on the 8 Mile soundtrack. It's most people will go to that song if you ask them for like top 10 hip hop songs of all time. And it's kind of what I loved about that song is it's kind of brings you in to him coming out the other side of that really sad stuff and the really hard upbringing. And there's the lines about now we sip champagne when we're thirsty, which obviously they don't sip champagne when they're thirsty because that wouldn't help at all. No. But it's kind of that real turnaround, and it's been such a big influence on hip hop in general, that song, and in good and bad ways, because it's been the songs about that, coming up from the struggle, which became the biggest theme of hip hop over the years. But also a lot of people then started just singing songs about how rich they were and rapping about how many cars they had because they thought, oh, Biggie did it. But no, in that song, he's doing the opposite of that. And that's what's really strong in this album, I think, is a lot of what you've said there. The songs like Everyday Struggle, Things Done Changed, they are brilliant at documenting difficulties of growing up as a young black American, and he's amazing at that. I can see why this album's rated as one of the best hip-hop albums of all time. He's an incredible MC. I haven't heard many this good. Like Nick said, it's not dated in the same way as even the Nas that we listened to a few episodes ago. I think it's less dated than that.
I also agree.
The only thing that gets to me sometimes on this album is Puff Daddy. Like, why does he have to talk or exist? It just says "baby, baby" at the end of every song, and it's just. But for me, if I'm being honest, this album, there's so many positives in it. I loved it, and I do love it. But if this album was released today, I'd be kind of up in arms about the misogyny within it.
Yeah.
I think I don't know where I stand on that today. Like looking back, because he was a 21-year-old guy at the time.
Yeah.
Growing up in the kind of environment we've just spoken about.
Yep.
And it's
not recently. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a 24-year-old album.
Yeah.
So I think looking back, I think you can excuse that because of the power of what he does with songs like Everyday Struggle and what he does well. I think you can kind of look past it a little bit. But there are a couple of songs, particularly Friend of Mine and Give Me the Loot, that are kind of unlistenable to me. Because of that, I can't listen to the descriptions of pulling a woman out of a car and beating the shit out of her, no matter how old it is.
Yeah. No matter what the context is, I totally agree with you.
But then there's a song, Me and My Bitch, which probably sounds like the most misogynistic song on the album from the title, but actually it's one of the only hip-hop songs of that era that I've heard where it's giving a lot of sort of autonomy to the woman in it and giving a lot of power to the woman in it. So, maybe he died very young. I'd love to see what he'd have done as time went on. He might have, some of that might have gone, and he might have just carried on doing the really powerful stuff. So yeah, great album. Possibly my favourite of the albums on this playlist. Other than I did need to be near the skip button for them songs I couldn't listen to.
Yeah.
Coming on, but yeah, it's great. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, jumping straight on from the end, where you talk about the misogyny, I actually found it kind of interesting how I think it was in One More Chance where he started with the voicemails.
Yeah.
And he actually, I think it was an interesting dichotomy of like he spends the entire song talking about how he gets all these women and stuff. But the voicemails at the beginning set him up as just a bit of a dick.
Yeah.
And so I think he could, in some sense, recognize that within himself and within
I think I agree with that. Yeah.
Which was really cool. And I think that like those dichotomies are throughout the entire album, like recognizing the bravado, but also the fallbacks, and that was like the parts of like hip hop which I like the most, where someone has like witty lyrics that are also poignant at the same time, and it's just every line is almost like that. So yeah, I thought I had a really good time listening to this album, and like everyone talks about his flow, and this is the first time I actually sat down and listened to an entire album, and it's so smooth, over the top.
It's out of this world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just he packs so much in while also being quite lethargic and like
it seems relaxed, doesn't it? Yeah, it's not like frenzied, is it? Yeah, and so busy with ideas.
It's relentless, absolutely relentless.
Yeah.
So I guess we're all in agreement. This there's a reason people talk about this as a classic album.
Yeah. That's actually, I was going to ask Fran, actually, because I think when you introduced it, you said it had been recommended on another podcast as the greatest album of this genre ever, and I want to see if you think that's the case.
It's up there. I mean, it is up there. I think, again, I hate to keep coming back to it, but maybe the misogyny in it, even though I agree with a lot of what you guys are both saying, does hold me back from saying that. But the misogyny is throughout hip hop, and I think you've got to. If you like this, I mean, it's getting better now. It's up there though. I mean, it's one of the best I've heard in a very long time. I've not heard a flow like that from many people other than sort of some of the real greatest rappers. So yeah, I mean, it's up there. I'd probably need to spend more time with it. I mean, the reason I'm going to admit again, I think I said this around the time of the Nas, the reason I've not listened to it much before is because I was such a fucking geeky Tupac fan. When I was into hip hop in my teens and stuff, that they I couldn't listen to Biggie. He's 100% a better rapper than Tupac.
Because you grew up in LA, didn't you?
Yeah, so, I know, man. It's Fug Life, wasn't it?
You're all Compton all the way, yeah.
So yeah, it was ridiculous reason not to listen to him, but it is what happened. Apart from the song "Juicy," which I've known for a long time, and then a couple of others that he did later on that weren't as good because Puff Daddy got more involved, but or P Diddy or whatever his name is, the artist formerly known as
P Diddy,
whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to argue with people who say this is one of the best hip hop albums of all time. They're right. It is up there. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty solid then. Yeah.
That was a nice start. We all were in agreement for like the first time ever at the start.
Only go downhill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Hopefully it will go downhill because it's not fun if we all agree all the way through. Okay, Matt. I'll come to you now. So that was which one took Nick most out of his comfort zone. So which one felt the most comfortable and familiar to you?
So for me, it was the Screaming Females album. And that's mostly because...
Yeah? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, All at Once. And so for me, that's because it was quite reminiscent of like early 2000s rock in parts, which really kind of brought me back to when I was really starting to get into music. I think it had a really nice urgency throughout it, and it started off really, really strong with the opening two tracks, especially like Glass House, the way it builds to a really nice crescendo after quite a like staggered and interrupted beginning. And I don't know, guitar-driven rock isn't as like it isn't the genre it once was, and so for me, it's been a standout in what has been pretty a weak field at the moment. But that said, it isn't. I don't think there's anything within it that was particularly special. I just think it was really like a really solid album the entire way through. And I really like her voice. It's like got a nice deep tone to it. And yeah, I think that's that's pretty much like it. It's not mind blowing, but it was, for me, it was just a nice, like, comfortable experience, and pretty much exactly what your question was asking.
Right. Well, yeah. I'm gonna jump in because I'm gonna say almost exactly the same things as you. So I feel like we need to get the agreeing out of the way and hope that Nick has a different opinion, but he might not. Similar. I wrote down nearly everything you said. Like the one band it really reminded me of that I used to love was No Doubt, when No Doubt were good, which admittedly was for a very short time, maybe one album. But it did really remind me of that. Again, agreed, the album starts really strongly. For me, until the song End of My Bloodline, which is around song 8 or 9, I think it's all really strong until that. And I do think the songs I'll Make You Sorry and Agnes Martin, I'd probably say are quite special. I'd put them above what you said, there not been anything special on there. But if I was going to get really picky, it's too long for the kind of album that it is. It's like a really urgent, sort of energetic album, and it's 15 songs long, and some of them drag a bit. So for me, I'd have probably cut 10 songs from it. 5 songs. I'd have cut it down to 10. I'd cut it down to 10 songs. But other than that, yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't expecting to enjoy it. I don't know why, because the name's shit. That's probably why. Screaming Females.
I like the name.
No, I don't like it. I'm not having it.
Just vetoed that.
Yeah, but yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. So yeah, let's see, Nicholas.
So for me, of all the 5 of the new albums to us, including the Notorious B.I.G. one, this was by a long, long way the weakest.
Wow.
I thought this album. I put this album on. I put the whole playlist on shuffle, and I kept having to.
What's happening to you? You don't shuffle.
I know. I do. I'll explain about that in a minute because I listened to this playlist a lot, actually, more than probably any other we've done before. And I ended up having to look this band up because everything that came on, I kept thinking, is this the classic? Like, how old is this music? It seems so dated. It was just bizarre. And it's a brand new album. It just seems so generic rock and just kind of cheesy solos, rock solos, which didn't really have any flair to them and weren't really were overproduced from a tone standpoint, and sort of felt like they were really too clean. Particular song, there's a solo on "Birds in Space" that I really, really just thought was.
"Birds in Space" is a very poor song. That's one of the ones I would cut.
That was a Cheese Factory. Sorry, that's not a good song. But so, and then what I sort of felt like what they were trying to do. You could get 10 times better out of Savages. Savages was a way better version of this band, I feel like. Really, really furious, trying to be like rock, like punk rock crossover, but fresh and new. And we don't have to get into that band.
Was it Savages that we put on the playlist last year that I hated, or was that... No, that was Slaves, wasn't it?
That was
Slaves, yeah.
Savages are more post-punk, though, I'd say. They've got a different...
Maybe that's the problem. I just don't like this genre then. I'm just tired of the genre. I mean, it just seemed really tired, and no part of it jumped out at me. Like Matt's saying, it was very kind of easy going, you know? But that's not a good thing at all. It was just way too comfortable to listen.
It did feel like a bit of a throwback to me, which is what you're saying about it being a bit like... it maybe sounded like it was older to you. It did feel like a bit, which is why I said it reminded me of No Doubt at the time. But for me, that felt a little bit nostalgic, and I didn't mind. I didn't mind that it sounded like that. I think that's okay as long as I think it does. I mean, if it's been the classic, that's fine. But if we're listening to an album from 2018, I kind of want to listen like it's a new album, not one from 15 years ago. But I mean, it is.
Call me stupid.
It is a new album.
It's from 2018.
Exactly. It just doesn't sound it at all. It just seemed anyway. So to me, it was really really weak. Yeah. So and there was no part of it I really enjoyed, and parts of it just kind of drifted past without me noticing.
Well, it's
versus other parts that were actively a bit irritating because they were so cheesy. So like Birds in Space.
Yeah, Bird in Space is bad. I'm going to go with that. Did you like Bird in Space?
No, not really.
No,
it's that. I think I like the final song, but I think it, like you say, it does tail off a little bit.
Yeah, I think you get up to Soft Domination. I think Agnes Martin and I'll Make You Sorry are both brilliant by then. I think Glasshouse and Black Moon are both really good as well. But yeah, after End of My Bloodline, it just tail off. But no, Nick's not right about all of that. Just so you all know.
Yeah.
All right.
I think good. They're from New Jersey, so maybe they're like 20 living in the past.
Yeah.
New Jersey's set 20 years in the past.
I might be going to see them next week.
That's not fair. So. I don't think. I mean, Titus Andronicus are from there, from New Jersey.
They're named after a Shakespeare play, so...
Cutting edge.
Yeah, even further back.
The underground scene of Shakespeare, yeah.
I don't know them very well, but, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
You might be going to see them, did you say?
I might be going to see them at Soup Kitchen next week, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I like them.
I won't see you there.
I won't invite you now. I was going to ask you after, but I won't.
Don't bother, yeah.
They'll have a good live show, I reckon.
Yeah. The Soup Kitchen's tiny
be a lot
as
of big
well.
Chords.
So.
It'll be great.
Yeah, I like their big chords, man. Big chords aren't always a terrible thing. You compared Ezra Furman to Bryan Adams last time, so I'm not listening to you about any of this kind of thing.
I hold to that. Yeah. I hold to that song anyway.
Right, I'm going to move us on. And I'm going to move us on specifically to Mount Eerie's Now Only, because I think it's a conversation we should get out of the way as soon as we can, really.
Yeah.
Wow. That's an amazing statement to begin.
I'm not saying...
You could go first.
I'm not saying why. I'm not going to go first either. No? Well, I will go. All right, I will go first.
Go first.
I mean, I think for me...
You're itching to tell us anyway, so just get over with.
Well, it's not because... It's a really hard album to talk about, and I think the conversation needs to kind of go, because I don't think it's going to be a very fun conversation, but perhaps probably the most difficult album to discuss in the whole time we've done the podcast. Like, I want to admire and respect this album. If anybody doesn't know what it's about, it's the follow-up to Mount Eerie's previous album, and it's about his wife died suddenly, I believe from cancer.
Yeah. And they have a baby daughter.
They have a baby daughter, and both albums have been completely about that. And I want to admire and respect it because it's obviously a really brave thing to do, and it's and he's talented and he does some things quite well, but ultimately I end up questioning what kind of person can sit through this album more than a couple of times. And I end up questioning what the hell they're getting from it if they are sitting and listening to it for more than a couple of times, because it is painful. And it should be painful. And I think there's times when he does what he's trying to do really effectively. Like there's a line in the song Crow Part 2 where he says, "I'm sobbing and eating eggs again." Yep. And that hit me really hard. And I was like, oh, because I can imagine sobbing and eating eggs. I've probably done it a million times. I'll probably do it this weekend. I don't know. But
just for fun,
so that feels really real to me. But then there's a lot of times where I feel it goes too far, and I hate saying it because it's obviously what he needed to do in some way. But I find it unlistenable, and I also don't know the guy. Never met him. Never will meet him. But I feel like he might regret it in the future. I feel like it's so soon after what's happened, and then there's the big example that goes too far and that makes it painful to me. I can't remember which song it's in, but he sings about finding the fragments of bones of his wife in the garden when he's playing with his daughter. And
I think that might be Earth, actually. Yeah,
it probably is Earth. That would make sense. And it is hard enough just to hear that line that he's seen some bones, and then he turns on and says, "Is that bone part of her finger that caressed my face, and is that part of her cheek?" And then he carries on and he carries on and he carries on, and I just think, who's listening to it? And also, like, is he going to listen to it in 5 years, 10 years time, or is his daughter going to hear it? And it's too much. Right. And for me, it was too much. It went too far, but then I also can't blame him for that. So it's a really difficult thing to talk about, and I don't personally. My reaction to it is I couldn't listen to it very much at all,
right?
Because it was too much,
right?
Yeah. I don't know who wants to go next. I can't speak anymore.
I'll go. So who's listening to it?
Nick's listening to it. I kind of thought that would be what I would find out. Yeah.
A lot. I've listened to this album a lot.
How and what is wrong with you?
Many things wrong with me. I haven't got time for that. But how is... I found this to be... So I really liked the last one, actually, the one he did right after she passed away, which I think had some songs on it which were written a matter of weeks after she died.
The Crow Looks at Me, is it called?
Yeah. But I actually think this is a better one than that, actually. This actually has... If you just want to take it from a songwriting standpoint, this has a better kind of existential questions being asked, more kind of thought out and stuff than the last one. And I found it very harrowing, profoundly moving, pretty much on the verge of tears, sort of sitting on the tram listening to this, like people looking at me like, "Are you okay?" kind of thing, So, which happens to me on a weekly basis anyway, so I wasn't that surprised. But
it's just a Friday morning, that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Monday morning, more like, So really, really harrowing. I don't recommend this to anyone who's not ready for.
I don't recommend this to anyone. That is enough.
I don't recommend it to anyone who's not ready to put in some really hard work to get through this. That said, it has, beyond the incredibly moving and beautiful pictures that he paints of their relationship and the daughter's growth and stuff, it also has unbelievable existential questions, which are about what it is to be mortal, what it is to try and resist that, what it is to live in the kind of aftermath of a loss, which absolutely blew me away. 2 paintings by Nikolai Astrup was my high point of that, although it was pretty consistent all the way through. I will say that actually it was interesting. It was produced, a lot of it I think was recorded in a sort of home studio setting. And I was actually quite pleased about that because it was so, there was like a funnel almost of protection between us and his voice. It didn't sound as close as it did if they'd done it in a sort of more polished recording setting. And that actually shielded me a little bit from quite how harrowing some of the words were that were being said.
See, I cut in briefly and say I felt the opposite. I felt that that roughness of it made it even more like heartbreaking to me, more harrowing, because he sounded like he was. I mean, I think we talked about this a few weeks ago with an album that you didn't like, Matt, and I can't remember what it was, but you're saying that you want people... Oh, I think we were talking about Rye, actually. Not that you didn't like it, but that he felt too okay for such an emotional album. This guy felt too much like he was going to just break at any point, and understandably, if he had broken at any point, I would have got that, but it just... for me, I couldn't listen to it. But sorry, I thought it was...
I was just say as well that, I mean, so I certainly would say in its defense that it's not just an exercise in moping. He's really trying to struggle with big questions, and some of them he doesn't get to the answer to, and who could. And some of them, I think he does start to see some sort of amazing epiphanies in those moments. Particularly, as I say, on that Two Paintings is the strongest song of all of them, I think. And then the Crow Part 2 as well is really, really, really good. It was consistent, though. I also thought this style... I don't know if you follow Sun Kill Moon at all.
Yeah.
And I just felt like...
No.
Oh, you don't know Sun Kill Moon? Okay.
No.
Well, he's another songwriter acoustic guitar-based songwriter who is very, very similar, I think, in style. But I've listened to some of his albums and enjoyed them. I think he must be dreaming that he could ever produce something as intense and close and powerful and thoughtful as this. Because this is his dream, I think, honestly. So I absolutely loved it. I am thinking about getting on vinyl, actually. There's the vinyl test for you.
Wow.
I think Jill, that's my wife, has struggled through it a few times. And
I wouldn't put Kirsten through it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
And I don't expect that many people, the majority of people, will be able to get through it, and that's fine. That's fine. I'm not saying it's a laugh, but it's something very rewarding at the end of it, I think.
I think you're a Death Eater.
So I absolutely loved it, and to me, it was my favourite of these five.
Wow!
By a significant margin. Go for it, Matt.
I'm going to preface what I'm going to say by saying, as someone who's for him, as someone who's writing a song, it was obviously, like you said, super important for him and his struggle and what he's going through. But as the listener,
I give monkeys.
I think I had a very different experience.
Yeah.
Okay.
I personally don't know why he released this album.
Yeah.
I thought he could just make it and then exercise those demons by himself.
That's interesting.
That's how I felt.
He talks about playing shows to like drunk college kids and stuff, doesn't he?
That's the highlight of the bit when he talks about playing the last album at festivals
and chatting with Father John Misty and stuff about it all.
That's good. Yeah, I know. Yeah, carry on, Matt.
Carry on.
Because I'm with you.
But yeah, for me, it's just like this relentless kind of stream of consciousness, and it's kind of, it didn't feel particularly melodic. It just
no, I agree with
that. It
was
just bare and depressing, and I just like, I couldn't connect with it at all. And I think maybe if you've had someone that close to you who's died, then maybe you can connect with it. I don't know, but it's for a listener probably the worst album I've listened to in a very, very long time.
All right, well, I was really holding back about how I felt because I thought, I've got to be sensitive about this. But all right.
I can get like he needs to do something, but
no, I get it. What you're saying about the not released, because I mean, it's like I write fiction and I've written lots of stuff when you just feel like you need to get something out. I would never put it out for millions of people to read because it's. And I get...
That's what he does, though. He's a professional musician. That's what he does, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not a professional. Right, all right.
I'm just saying that's his function is to do that. That's how he perceives it.
Yeah, but
I know. I kind of know what you're both saying, but at the same time, I feel like
some things are private, and so I mean, I don't want to have a go here at this guy because I get it, but then I also think like his daughter, has got to hear this at some point in her life, and it's private stuff about her. It just felt.
But it doesn't put her in a bad light, nor does it show him in a bad light. It just shows him somebody who's reflecting on something really painful.
When she's a teenager, she listens back to this. She's like, "God, this is what my dad felt like when he was bringing me up." That's pretty brutal.
And they'll be incredibly like close on that basis, no?
Or she'll run away from him because she. I don't know. I hope I'm wrong. I hope But yeah, sorry. Have you got more to say, Matt, or because we just argued over you?
Not really. I only have one more point, and it's dumb. but
It's done. Say it.
The song Now Only. He started listing the way people die, and to me it sounded like a Sesame Street song.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was just like,
Yeah, I really thought about that a lot, actually. You're saying that really was weak and didn't work, yeah? Is that what you...
Yeah, I was just like, this is like it's a children's song about death.
I really thought about that a lot, actually. I totally agree with you. It sounds really jarring and out of place, and I was uncomfortable with it when I first few times I heard it. And then I kind of felt ultimately like what he's trying to do is make the fact that people are mortal seem like it's something that we all just have to come to terms with as a normal reality, and that's why he made it such a tuneful little melody. You know, one of the most overt melodies on the whole album. You know,
the only melody on the album.
Yeah,
and actually, I'm in the middle on this. I think it's like that worked for me a little bit, but then I felt like it wasn't. It's not subtle. It's like deaths can happen at any time, and I know that, but I don't want to be told that on the tram or on the bus on the way in every day. And it's kind of, that's why I don't understand, and I don't understand how people can listen to this again and again. I understand how you can listen to it and kind of think, I'm not probably with Matt saying it's as bad as Matt's saying, but I don't understand how people can listen to it again and again.
I've really dug into it, yeah. I've listened to it a lot. Yeah.
I don't understand.
I could imagine going to like a bereavement counselling group and him playing, and that would be like really great.
And then never leaving the room because you've got to curl up in a ball and fucking shake. Oh, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're not quite in 100% agreement.
This is why I wanted to say that out of the way, because it is a difficult one, because I do fully understand
when
the
they talk
process
about
of why someone wants to do it.
The part where it sort of goes into the little vignette and Tintin in Tibet, for example, when they go off, they're on the island and they're sitting on the beach and in each other's arms and stuff. It's just stunning imagery that he's putting together. It's really, really beautiful. And you can hold it, and it seems even more beautiful given the poignancy of the circumstances, doesn't it?
No.
Okay. Well, that was a good line of questioning. All right, so should we move along?
Yeah.
Go buy that album on vinyl, everyone. Don't listen to these two.
Whatever. Right, we've only got 2 of the new albums left, but Matt, have we talked about your favourite yet?
I had a tough time picking a favourite, but if I'm going to go with one right now, I would say probably the opposite of what we just talked about. Is it Wye Oak?
Yep. The louder I call, the faster it runs.
Yes. Yeah. And I just had a really nice time listening to this album.
Nice is a good word for this album.
That sounds awful.
Nice is just a nice time.
That's the kiss of death right there. It was so nice. So pleasant.
I felt it, like the weather's turned really nice here. Or like it's really sunny out. And I went, like, the first time I listened to this album on the list, I went out for a bike ride and I just had it on, and it felt like a very, after like winter's gone, it felt very like, I've forgotten what the word is. Like
sunny?
Well, yeah.
Happy?
Well, yeah, but it felt like
I've got words for it, but
joyous.
Not those ones.
Yeah. Well, it felt like a metamorphosis almost. Right,
Okay,
it's like after
that's better than happy. I like it.
Yeah.
Good vocab.
Did you just open a dictionary then?
Just a quick Google.
Science boy.
But yeah, it felt for me like the specific timing of it was, I think, key, because listening to this in the middle of winter might not have had such an effect, but it felt like really, really powerful to me at that time. I think because it's such a bold and bright album. So that was like, it was really great in that respect. And
any high points or low points?
Yeah, I was just thinking the instrument I really liked, and it was not natural. I also really liked the way that song develops and gets really big in the chorus. And a lot of it reminded me, it's quite straightforward. It's not a complicated album. But a lot of it reminded me of Bat for Lashes, which I'm also a big fan of. And I haven't... there's like a few people doing similar things, but I don't think anyone has done something like this with quite so much joy for a while. So that's what I enjoyed.
Okay. I'm going to go, because I hated this album.
It was happy. Is that exactly the same word that Matt was just using?
I was excited for this album because I like Wye Oak.
I might be a picky bastard, but you're a miserable bastard. That's the problem.
You just like Mount Eerie, mate. So sit down. Calm yourself. No, I was excited for this album because I like Wye Oak and I like what I've heard before, but I think this is the worst thing they've put out. It's music with absolutely no bite whatsoever. It's got no drive. It's got no nothing. It's just... I like the fact you said nice because I wrote down everything's just so nicey, la-di-da. And that is precisely what it is. It's the song Lifer. Sounds like something that should be on a washing powder advert with like women with flowing hair holding sheets up that are really clean and dancing around a field. And then it's followed by what Matt just said was his favourite. It was Not Natural, which sounds exactly the same as the song before it.
What about the lyrics to It Was Not Natural? Did you follow that?
I couldn't even hear them. It was
It Was Not Natural. I can't remember exactly the lines now, but there's after that repeat of It Was Not Natural, only human hate could devise something so full of evil or something. There's some really dark connotation in that line actually.
Well, it was maybe they're hiding a darkness that I missed and might have liked more. But no, the only song that did it for me on the whole album was Symmetry. It's kind of the only one with a bit of aggression, the only one with a bit of drive in it, and it just really disappointed me. Really disappointed me.
Okay.
You're wrong again, Fran.
Yep. He certainly is. Yeah, I really like this album in general. I don't think it's their strongest by quite a way, actually. Civilian, 3 albums ago now, is really fantastic album. This was, very good instead of fantastic. I thought it was really beautiful. Good? I thought it was really beautiful. I thought the vocals on it were really beautiful, and her voice has got steadily stronger. There are moments, in fact, when she's got to be careful that she's going to drift into being like over the top about her sort of vocal delivery of things, I felt. But there was an awful lot that was just right in that position in terms of sort of lifting her voice over the instrumentation and stuff. So It Was Not Natural was one I had picked out as well as a favourite. I also like My Signal a lot, which was a really simple one, sort of quite stripped down, almost a cappella for a while, and then some strings came in. I've been following the band for years and years, and I would say this is better than their last album, but not as good as the one before that, as I say, or maybe it's 2 before that. I'm slightly losing track.
So they all sound the same.
No, no. I really enjoyed it, and I think it was really consistent actually across the album. It was a very polished sort of piece of sort of shiny piece of work. Shiny, nice. Yeah,
nice and shiny.
Terrible. What about the previous albums is different? Because I haven't listened to the previous albums.
So I got into this band and originally wanted to put this on the list because I saw them a few years ago, and that when they were playing on the Civilian tour, which is the one that I really, really love. And they're a 2-piece band, and the drummer plays keyboard, bass basically, while he plays drums and keyboards for the bass part, and then she sings and plays guitar. And it was very, I would say the earlier stuff was more aggressive than this.
Yeah.
It certainly wasn't aggressive. It actually isn't a million miles away from Big Thief, I think, the earlier stuff.
Yeah.
In style.
Okay.
But
without the voice
is... Yeah, her voice is... Yeah. Well, a very different kind of voice, at least. Yeah, I think I'd agree with that, yeah. They certainly become cleaner. But I think what you're saying about that metamorphosis idea is quite interesting. It is a very joyous album and very uplifting. And it was actually brilliant because on my sort of sorting of this playlist, it kept coming up right after the Mount Eerie. And the juxtaposition was pretty shocking, but great. I ended up liking both of these albums a lot, although I think the Mount Eerie is certainly better. But yeah,
so let me choose between those two.
So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. So
all right,
so that just leaves. What does that leave?
Jean, Grae, and Quelle Chris. Everything's fine. I'm going to ask Nick to kick us off on this one.
Okay. So I'm really, really pleased we did this album because with the Biggie album as well, because I can't imagine a hell of a lot more different styles of production in the same genre as these two albums. It was really, really intricate and complex, and I was really fascinated by that. It had a lot of kind of really off-kilter things, which are, kind of off odd beats and positions of beats and stuff. I thought it worked well, and it was in the style, although, in some ways, in the style of the Danny Brown album that we did, that Fran and I did with Normal last year. Atrocity Exhibition, which I really, really got into. It was like that. And it also had a lot of humor in it, which I really enjoyed. There's so many gags all the way through it. There's the stuff about on Osh about people wearing 2-pack t-shirts, how much they're in the scene because they wear 2-pack t-shirts and stuff. Yeah, it was really well thought out, and also quite a nice consistency across the whole album. Like it felt a bit like, I would say, the Wye Oak. The two albums both are very much of one style, and they move through that style consistently and sort of have themes that come through repeatedly. So I really enjoyed it. I would say, the Danny Brown stuff, Scoop of Dirt was the most like that, I thought, in terms of the Danny Brown sort of craziness and oddness, and also darkness. And also, was it Gold, Purple, Orange? That was one I really liked as well. So, so it was great. It was really great. I really enjoyed it, and it's. This is the last, isn't it? Before we talk about the Nadine Shah, we talked to all 5 now. Yeah. So I mean, to me, that this was this rounded off a in general, excellent list.
I'm going to come back to that question, mate. Don't get ahead of yourself.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we'll talk more about it then. But yeah, so it was really interesting, and I thought the flow was excellent. But it was so great to see that the genre has so much scope in it that you can have 2 albums this different, and they can both be great in the same month reviews. So yeah, it was cool.
Matt?
So I suggested this because I'd heard her do comedy, and I'd heard her heard that she was like a pretty good rapper, but I hadn't actually listened to it. And I'm really glad that I did, because I really enjoyed this album. I struggle to pick between this and Wye Oak for what I thought was the best album on the list.
Fran's shaking his head as usual.
Yeah, it wasn't a shake of the head; it was just a little giggle.
Laughing at your expense.
No.
I really enjoy the satire all the way through, and the way they kind of adopt different personalities. And then they have this kind of broad idea about what they want the album to be about. And even though they're coming at it from different angles, like you were saying, Nick, there's this kind of consistency about this kind of general theme.
Yep.
Of everything being fine.
Yeah.
And I really like how when they're constructing this, like they use the interstitial between the songs to reinforce this. Like when they go they have the
Don't Worry It's Fine, those little
let's get some white middle class comedians to speak over it, to say that everything's fine when obviously. And so I think that's a really interesting reflection. Gold, Purple, Orange is also my favorite song, I think, but there's also some other. Peacock I also really like as well. And she also has really, really her rapping's really, really strong. And she's really interesting, intricate rhyming style. I think she was rhyming entire like blocks of sentences, which is.
I understand she's been really underground as well for a while. She's been doing things, just releasing on Bandcamp and stuff, which is kind of interesting and crazy that she should have this amount of skill from nowhere, as it were.
Well, she's been. It seems like she's been around for a while. It's just.
No, I think they both do things kind of a bit less. Yeah, I think this is the most well-known album so far by the sounds of things. But they've both been around, doing little bits and all different projects by the sound of things as well, with different people. So, did I cut you off, Matt? Oh, you got more to say?
I just all in all, it's a really, really good album, I think.
I think me, sorry, were you?
I was going to say, what do you think?
Desperate to get in there.
For me, my favourite thing about this album was the fact that an album called Everything's Fine followed Mount Eerie on the playlist. So it went through like the worst depression to an album. Obviously, Everything's Fine is ironic.
Yeah, I'd say this is more depressing than Mount Eerie in some respects, culturally speaking.
But I want to. Yeah, I'll start with positives. She's an incredible MC. She really is. He's good too. He's a little bit slow for my liking, and if you compared to a Biggie that's quite slow, he's maybe not quite got the delivery that I enjoy. But I've been really getting back into hip hop in the last couple of months and listening to a lot of stuff I used to love and discovering new stuff. So I was really hopeful for this, but I just never really connected with it. I think I should have done in a way because I really like the idea of an album that's about how society is collapsing and ignoring everything that's happening and does it in quite an ironic way. And the songs like Breakfast of Champions, which are about political subjects that really matter to me, and this one's about the police killings of young black men in America. But I just didn't really connect, and I think a lot of that's to do with the beats. Now, you've said earlier about Biggie and this being like the opposite end of the spectrum of hip hop. And hip hop for me that I've always really enjoyed has been the really precise, really controlled kind of hip hop, and that's why maybe Danny Brown's an interesting comparison because I didn't really love Danny Brown.
I was going to ask you if I couldn't remember what your position was.
Yeah, I didn't love it. I liked it more than like this. Both of them remind me a little bit of Outkast, who I love, but Outkast just maybe controlled the chaos a little bit better. I love the fact you have the sense of like, where the hell am I going right now? You know, like, where is the beat and like where? See, that's for hip hop that doesn't work for me a lot of the time. I mean, it's like jazzy hip hop. It's not. It doesn't really do it for me. I want a bit more control. I want the beat to match the MC, and I want things to be. I mean, it doesn't mean I hated this album. I didn't. There's a few songs. I love Peacock, which Matt's already mentioned. I really like Zero, and I like Waiting for the Moon. But all in all, it was a disappointment to me. As I will say, unless anyone want to come back on that, or
I mean, I don't agree with you, but apart from that,
that's fine. You're allowed to not agree with me.
Thank you. That's really kind of you.
But as I would say, if we're talking about the whole playlist, it was interesting to hear what Nick was starting to say about it because this whole playlist was quite disappointing to me. I was expecting big things from 3 of the albums: Mount Eerie, Grae and Quelle Chris, and Wye Oak, and they all kind of disappointed me hugely. Screaming Females was good, but not amazing. Biggie was obviously mind-blowingly good.
Yeah.
But then it had a bit too much misogyny. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a disappointment for this playlist.
Well, as I already kind of hinted, I totally disagree. Of all our playlists of the last year or so, this might be the strongest playlist we've done, I think. With the exception of Screaming Females, as I explained, I thought was pretty weak. All the other 4 are all great, really great. I mean, they have their flaws, and I agree. I tell you what you're saying about the Biggie album in particular, that issue. I really enjoyed this. So there's been playlists we've been through more than once where I've just been like, oh, God, I'll go back to the Picky Bastard playlist for a bit, and just get
that is what I felt like a lot of the time.
This was just fun. I mean, I put it on just for a laugh. Fun? It was great.
Mount Eerie.
It was emotionally immersive. We put it that way, and fun. So I really enjoyed it, and
How about you, Matt?
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere in between. Nothing was terrible apart from Mount Eerie, but nothing really grabbed me and made there's nothing that I'm going to have on heavy rotation a year from now, I don't think.
No. Although Nick's going to have Mount Eerie.
I can imagine all 4 of these, all 4 of those, excluding the Screaming Females, would be, for me, played regularly.
Perhaps the only one of the 4 new releases that I will still listen to is Screaming Females.
Wow. Wow. It was actually good because I was really nervous as I was listening to it. I was thinking, wow, this playlist is really, really strong. This is going to be a really boring episode because we're just going to be like, yeah, this is all great, wasn't it? And we've not agreed almost on anything except for Biggie.
No.
So yeah, what a surprise.
Good old Biggie.
So let's talk about Nadine Shah, shall we?
All right. Well, let's just say for 1 minute, all that aside, there is one absolutely outstanding album on this playlist, and I'm about to tell you about it. So so Nadine Shah. I'll give you a bit of an introduction because she's not. Some of the people I've introduced on the Why I Love section before have been quite big names, so I've not really needed to introduce them. Nadine Shah's getting a reputation, but she's not huge. She's got 3 albums. The first one is called Love You're Dumb and Mad. That was a debut in 2013. And the second was Fast Food, which came out in 2015. Both really strong albums. And I did think a long time about doing a playlist instead of just using her latest album, which is called Holiday Destination. But as for reasons I'll go into shortly, this album really struck a chord with me, so I decided just to go with this album. So it came out last year. I don't know if I just mentioned that. So for me, I first kind of got into Nadine Shah because I was going to Latitude Festival in 2015. And as you probably guessed, if you listen to the podcast, I'm a little bit of a music geek. So whenever I go to a festival, I'll listen to every single artist who's playing there and make a little, not a spreadsheet, I'm not quite that geeky, but I get pretty close to a spreadsheet.
I would have done that.
I make a playlist on Spotify, all that business. And she was one of the ones that really stuck out to me as someone I needed to go and see. And this was just after the second album. And then I went to see her. I've now seen her 3 times, but she's just an amazing performer. Like, each time it's been different, but the first time she looked like she wanted to kill everyone in the audience. She just looked so angry. I don't know if she had an argument with someone before she got on stage or what, but it really suited the music. Like, she just looked furious, and but she was still incredible. She's got an amazing voice, and live it's even better. The second time I saw her was at Gorilla in Manchester, and she was absolutely levered, pissed at her head, rolling around the stage, but still put on an amazing performance. I can't remember what song it was. It's not off this album that we've gone through this time, but one of the last songs, she got anyone who was a mum in the audience, she got them to join her on the stage in Gorilla. And they all kind of danced through the last song.
Which is not a big venue.
Yeah, it's a tiny venue. I mean, there wasn't loads of mums there, but still, I think her mum was there, which made it even better. So yeah, and then I saw her again this year at the Trades Club in Hebden Bridge, and she wasn't pissed, she wasn't angry, she was just brilliant. So yeah, I've been into her for a few years now, but when Holiday Destination came out, well, I'll say when it came out, actually, it took a bit of time to grow on me, but once I really got into it, she went from sort of being an artist I just really like to up there in my top artists, I think. And I think if she does another album of this strength, she'll be knocking on the sort of top 10, which is hard with my top 10. It's been there for a long time. Huh. Now, we did a albums of 2017 episode in January before Matt had joined us, and I chose The National, and I'm going to say something that it's hard for me to say, but if we were to go back now, I might choose this album instead of that, because I've listened to it almost non-stop since it came out in August, and I think I had a few listens, and then I've just listened to it non-stop for the last 4 months, really. It's really got to me. So it's a step forward for her sonically. It's more dense, it's bolder, there's more layers to it. There's some amazing little guitar licks and guitar solos and some brilliant drumming. But for what's really got me about this album, I think, is the lyrical content and the storytelling. So obviously it's a very political album. And like me, she is a second-generation immigrant. She's half Pakistani. She's got, her mum's English, but I think her mum was half Norwegian or something. But she's sort of grown up as a half Pakistani woman who also, her dad was Muslim or from a Muslim family. So she's grown up as that in England in a similar situation to me, in a sort of small town where she was the only person who wasn't white. So when she released this album, and there were songs like Out the Way and Evil, it really nailed the experience of being in Britain since Brexit and Trump for me. The song Evil, where she repeats quite often, all these folk, they think that I'm evil. I think it's the devil himself. And then she's got a line that goes on through the song saying, how can I compete with an ingrained thought? And it's all about sort of living as a non-white person in the UK. And also she's a Muslim, as I've said before, and just dealing with that experience. And I think she does that really well. Like, I've never heard music that does that so well. And she's really nailed that experience for me. And it's more than just that. I think she's done something that a lot of artists have tried to do recently. I think one example I thought of was PJ Harvey's. What was the last album called?
It was called
Hope Demolition
Project.
Yeah, Hope Demolition Project, where she was trying to do like a State of the Nation, State of the World album, and she did an okay job, PJ Harvey, there, but it was a bit of a letdown because I think maybe because she hadn't personally experienced that stuff. I mean, she's a millionaire, probably lives in a castle.
Yeah.
Whereas Nadine Shah is still making her way up, and the way she did that on this album, I mean, there's songs about immigration, there's songs about Syria, there's songs about, The Mother Fighter is an amazing song about her sort of bringing up a child, and that child maybe, at the minute, the streets not being, there's a line that the streets are really your own, and at the minute, those streets not being someone like that, and she's hoping that in the future, her child will grow up and see those streets as her own. It's a brilliant song. And then there's songs about the state of the family in Britain. So I just think it's a really clever album and a really political album, but done in it's a really funky sounding album. It's got a bit of jazz in it. It's upbeat. You can go run into this album. It's lively, and she's got just an amazing voice. Like, I love the way her Geordie accent just doesn't fit with who she is and what she looks like and everything, but she just delivers it brilliantly. So yeah, the album, I'm not connected to an album like this for a long time, so I really wanted to put it to you two and to the listeners. And yeah, if she continues to progress like this, then she's going to be, well, she should be an absolute megastar, but maybe she won't because she's singing about things a lot of people don't want to hear. So yeah, I love her. She's brilliant. And I'd love to know what you guys think. Who wants to go first?
Matt, what do you want to...
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I found it really interesting to listen to this alongside the Jean Grae album, because they're two very different ways of approaching the topic of the Western politics. And I think this one was a lot more successful.
Correct.
It's so it's so aggressive, but like perfectly, like the tone is perfect still. I think it's like underlined all the way through, like ending the first track with some protest songs.
Yeah.
And it feels like she knows exactly what she's doing, and she's got a point to prove or a point to put across. And then she does it very well and very quickly, because the album isn't very long, I didn't think. Like every time I listened to it, it kind of flew by, and it's like she's got this message across, and then she's done and she leaves. And I think that's a skill in itself, being able to know when to cut off.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've listened to her before. I've listened to Fast Food a couple of times.
Another great album.
Yeah, it's really good, but I think for me there was more just a couple of standout songs, but it never really grabbed me. But this was definitely a step up from her. It's the kind of because before she's got quite like strong post-punk aesthetic, and she's added to that in this album. And it's because, like you were saying, it's because there's a lot more going on, and it makes it a lot more interesting. So yeah, I think this was really quite an exceptional album. Definitely, I think it was my favorite that we listened to on the list.
Good to know.
And I will be actively listening to her more in the future, rather than just occasionally.
And I'd say with the other albums, I agree with what it is, a step up and everything, but Fast Food particularly, if you spend a bit more time with that album, I think you'll find I think she's a grower. She takes a bit of time, and that is a good album. It's not as good as this, but I think spend a bit more time with that one, definitely.
Okay, I will do. That's my homework.
Good. I'll be asking you about it next time.
So yeah, shall I jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
I didn't know her at all. Never heard the name even, and I loved it. I thought it was great. I thought it was really drew from some people that I really like in interesting ways. It was experimental. It was interestingly put together. Obviously, it was politically very well thought out. Maybe that's not obvious, but that's true. It was very, very, very clearly politically put together very well. I loved Yes Men was probably a high point for me.
Yeah,
Evil as well. It was consistent though. It was very strong across the board. I thought Evil actually sounded a little bit in style like Arcade Fiery to me. If that's if Fran's not going to throw something at me for saying
I don't know them that well, so I'm not going to.
Okay, all right. Well,
I don't love them, but I don't know them that well. So.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, so in the best of what they do, I thought this was something a little bit like that style in the way she produced that song. And I'll give it higher praise than that. In fact, we were talking about Hope 6 Demolition Project. That's what we just looked it up and then reminded ourselves of the name. So as everyone should know, I'm a massive PJ Harvey fan, like a ridiculous PJ Harvey fan. And PJ Harvey did make this album, the last album, with a very political sensibility. She's done for the last couple of albums, but this newest one in particular. And I think it fell flat, and she overreached in ways I won't bother getting into all the details now. But and I thought, by those standards, obviously PJ Harvey is one of my all-time favourite artists, so I'm not going to say I prefer Nadine Shah to PJ Harvey. But in terms of that album versus this album, I think this album executes better what it's trying to do, and there's some similarity in the sort of political approach. So yeah, I thought it was great. I haven't got too many more things to say, except I really loved it and really think I'll definitely dig into it again. And it only underlined the excellence of this playlist that we put together, since now 5 out of 6 are really good.
Where does it stand on the playlist for you if you were to go back? And is it as good as Mount Eerie, or are you not going to go?
It's not as good as Mount Eerie.
Yes,
sorry,
it is.
It's not as good as Mount Eerie. I'm sorry.
It's a different level.
It is a different level. That's
world
right.
to Mount Eerie.
That's correct. We can agree on that anyway. Just not which way around. So no, it was really good. I don't want to slate it at all. But it didn't have the same effect on me as the album did. But that's a separate question.
Going back to what you're saying about PJ Harvey, do you feel there's some of what I was saying in that she's actually lived a lot of this? She's like she's got that experience. I think. Yeah,
my worry with the PJ Harvey album was that I think she's got a prodigious talent, and she's done so many reinventions of herself in incredible new directions, and that's another conversation. But essentially, this new album of PJ Harvey's was an attempt to do something so big, to capture a cultural experience of oppression in so many different ways and so many different places, because she went to 3 different places around the world to cover that album's topics. It's just too much. It was just it defeated even her. So that's the problem. That's a worry. And I hope things will improve for the next one, because that's really the only album PJ Harvey ever made on her own that I've ever not absolutely loved. So
apologies to everyone. I didn't mean to get him on a PJ Harvey rant.
I know, exactly. Yeah. So you asked. So yeah.
I'm gonna say a couple more things about this album that I've thought of while we've been talking. I just want to talk about some of the lyrics, because obviously that's what I mentioned as the big thing for me. Like, the song Out the Way opens with the line, "Where would you have me go? I'm second generation, don't you know?" And the way she delivers that line is so powerful. And that goes back to what I'm talking about it just telling the story of what it's been like in this country for the last couple of years. And I think that's really powerful. And there's all the stuff in Jolly Sailor, the final song. She starts off talking about sons and fathers and sons singing together in pubs in Newcastle when she was growing up, and how that's kind of just disappeared from the. But she does it in such a it doesn't sound depressing. Like Mount Eerie, come on, it sounds, as much as you loved it, it sounds like depression. This album's got depressing subject matter, but it sounds like.
Sorry, there was joy in Mount Eerie as well.
What, when he sang about people getting hit by a bus and dying?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I'm just going to go over that again and again.
I want everyone to give this album a go and give Nadine Shah a go. I think PJ Harvey. I think there's a comparison there as well. I think she's changed a little bit between each album so far, and if she carries on doing that, I mean, she could be huge, and she should be huge already for me. But I'll shut up now. I could go on. Everybody listen to this album.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about next time, shall we?
We will. Let's talk about next time.
Yeah.
Who wants to? Yeah, you want to round things off?
Well, first of all, it's going to be our first time having a guest.
Yeah, exciting news. We've got a guest presenter joining us for just one episode. My friend Sam, and he's going to. The way we're going to structure it is he's going to pick a new album that he doesn't know, like the ones we always pick. He's also going to pick the classic, which he also doesn't know, but it's an older, not a brand new release. And then he's going to do a playlist of Why I Love. So he's going to basically, half the 6 are going to be picked by Sam, and then the other 3 will be 3 new albums picked by us. So we'll just go round ours, shall we?
Yeah,
Fran,
so we'll be picking an album first, and I'll be going with Saba, Care for Me, which came out a couple of months ago.
And Matt?
I'm going to go for Everything Is Recorded by Richard Russell, which is the album name, and then the artist is Everything Is Recorded.
That's either true or Spotify's mental. We're not sure.
I can't be right. I cannot be right.
I did Google it as well, though, and it looks like it is right.
That's unbelievable.
So yeah,
it's out there.
Wow.
But he's the guy from XL. He's a producer who runs XL.
Right, I see. Okay. And I'm going to go with King Cruel's The Ooze, and which I don't know, but I've heard of. And then Sam tells me that he's going to go with the new Arctic Monkeys album, which is called The Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino. He's also going to go with, as his new album, his
classic album.
The classic album is going to be Wait, I've got to find it. I've got to find
Dolly
it.
Parton.
It is.
Linda Ronstadt and somebody whose name I can't remember. Emmylou
Harris. There you go. Dolly Parton, Linda Ronstadt, Emmylou Harris. Trio is his classic.
Thanks for that, Sam.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's going to be interesting. And then his playlist is going to be by Robin, which R-O-B-Y-N, isn't it?
Yeah, I know one song, so that's,
I don't know any at all, so it'll be all new to me. So yeah, looking forward to doing that next month. And that'll be out a couple of weeks after we've recorded it. And yeah, that's it. I think we're all done.
So we'll see you
soon. So thanks very much. Right. And we will speak to you in a month.
Don't listen to Mount Eerie.
Yeah. See ya.
Bye.